Alright, welcome back. I hope you're having a good day. This is a Ficus Microcarpa, commonly sold as a Ginseng Ficus. I've explained it in some of my earlier videos. Most of these are, what they do is they take a microcarpa from seed and they get the roots really fat. Usually it's a quick growing big leaf microcarpa, and then what they do is they just cut that off and then they graft some smaller microcarpa branches to the top. I get some people that insist that some of them are not grafted, and perhaps some of them aren't, but that's basically how they make them. They just get the seeds to swell up when they're young, or not the seeds, I'm sorry, the roots to swell up like this while they're young, and then they get misnamed ginseng just because they kind of look a little bit like the ginseng plant. This guy, I'm going to include a bunch of pictures here while I'm just kind of talking a little bit here. It's several years old. I got it, I do believe, early 2019. Was just in a little tiny pot, probably about that big. Again, that should be in some of these pictures here, those first couple pictures. Like probably a few months after I got it, I read enough about the hobby and everything and kind of figured out that it really wasn't for what it is. I mean, right now it's just kind of out of shape. I have a reason why I haven't messed with it for quite some time, but I haven't done anything with it for a while. When I do have this, I'm going to wire it today. I'm going to prune and wire it today, and then when it comes back from that, I think it looks really, really nice. But sometime over the summer, and I'll give you guys a little bit of a better look at this part here in a minute, the pot broke. I don't know if you noticed that the pot just kind of broke away on this side. But anyway, just before I start getting into that too much, this is what the other side here looks like. And again, maybe I didn't really stop in here enough just to kind of show you the sides that I would not consider the front to be either. In the summer, when I noticed that the pot broke, I mean, I noticed it probably a couple days after it happened. Nothing really special happened, like a storm or anything like that. Actually, I had it kind of facing away from me, both when I watered them and just kind of when I look out through my windows and everything in the backyard. And then one day I just kind of noticed something glinting behind it. And actually, it was during the rainy season, so I don't really go out there and water them every day when it's raining hard either. And I went and I looked, and I just saw the piece of pot behind it. I don't really know if just growing pressure did that. I actually went and watched the video back from when I first repotted this thing, which was a long time ago. That was 3.5 years ago, not too long after I started the channel. And this was sold as a clearance pot, and it had crack written in there. And I was even just trying to see if maybe that was the original crack, and I think it actually may have been now that I've looked at that. But at first, I thought about maybe doing a video. I'd go ahead and like trim the top, get some wire on the top and everything, and then just do a video trying to glue it back into place with the plant still there. Realized it would be way too dirty to really get any of the glue to hold there and everything. And then so I figured I'd just go ahead and repot it when I had time. And then after a little while, it just kind of turned into a little experiment to see, you know, like, what's it going to look like over some time. I do have it sitting on pretty much what could be considered like maybe a little piece of a patio, if you will. And this root actually escaped, got out to the edge of that patio there, and was really growing down very strong. I couldn't pull on that root at all. I had to cut it off. And then there's just some other little fine roots that got out. I'm surprised it really wasn't more. Although when that did break, it was towards the end of the rainy season. If I left it out there any longer, I'm sure this root would have gotten really huge and probably made this look really out of place down here and everything. But either way, I'm going to go ahead and prune and wire it and then just repot it. I got a big training pot. I've got a big training pot. I say not big, a little bit wider and deeper than this. And then I have another pot that's not really a training pot. It's a little bit wider than this and maybe a little more shallow. I'm just going to wait and see once I get it out of this one, which one of those two pots it looks a little bit better in. But first, I'm going to go ahead and prune and wire it. All right, I did let this go all summer long. I planned on just kind of allowing them to get some longer branches on it so I could kind of cut back for a little bit of taper. And again, sometimes the longer you let the branches get, the more flexibility they keep in them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to pretty much every growing tip. There are a few little smaller branches in here I'd like to keep and get some length on. But anything that, you know, I did lengthen out like I wanted it to, I'm going to get the growing tip and then just a couple leaves below it. And then usually, or like right exactly on that branch right there, I just kind of realized that there was a branch coming straight up off of it too. And then towards the end, kind of maybe come back and clean it up a little bit and start getting some of the crossing branches. Of course, I'll notice some of them as I go too. Alright, and I was checking out some things with the camera off. There are basically what I believe to be 4 grafts left on this. You know, at one point there was another one in here, and actually at one point, right when I first got this guy, it had some graft gall on it, where you get like a gall-like growth growing all up around one of the grafts, which is why I've been kind of hesitant to do, well, what I'm about to do. But this one and this one don't have a bad appearance and add, I think, to the aesthetics of the tree. This one is most of the tree, and I had tried to envision it just without any of the other branching there and leaving just this part. But this little guy right here has always been a little bit of a stumpy guy that I really don't know what to do with. If it started growing really strong, it would kind of look out of place, and eventually, you know, with the apical dominance, it would try to grow up some, and it would kind of grow into the other part here. So I decided just to go ahead and cut it off. Plus that root, and then there's this root right here coming from right from that spot, dropping down. They're actually coming down straight, so I'd like to leave them. Some of these other ones that are kind of going crooked, and when I repot it, I might try to straighten a couple of them out. This one's kind of wrapped all around. And again, I think I'll leave that there for now, but I am going to just take this off while it's nice and clean before I get my repotting set up in here. But this is one of the pots I'm thinking about switching it to. Didn't really realize how close up that would look when I got it there. But a little bit wider than what's there, slightly shallower. And then the other possibility would be this one, where it's quite a bit deeper and just almost the same size. It might even be a little bit wider, not so much the wide way, but the lengthwise way, but right around the same size. All right, and here we are. I said I was going to get my repotting set up in. Kind of forgot I was going to put wire on it first. I was actually just talking to some friends of mine about how I feel my brain getting old aged almost as quick as my back is, but I wasn't really anything all that special, other than I did decide the apex has a ton of ramification in it and just has little twigs, so I just cut that back just a little bit further and just kind of wired most of the branches, not each and every one, but once this thing gets a canopy on it, you can't see any of that anyway. I don't expect, this pot had a lip on it, and I know when I use these pots, sometimes I just kind of, have to remind myself of, be careful when you go to repot it, because you have to fight it out of that lip. But now with this other side missing, I really don't, and plus because it was a root over rock, and most of these roots were kind of going around the rock, I don't expect a whole lot of resistance here. I don't really want to be too terribly rough with it, just simply because I don't want to ruin its grip on the rock. This one never really had that great of a grip anyway. I did just kind of I took the pointy end of the rock and just shoved it up into the original ginseng roots there. And let's see here. It is a little more solid in there than I thought it would be, so try to take advantage of this open side. Holy cow, enough to make me check the drain holes to make sure nothing was growing through the drain holes. We'll loosen up some of this stuff around the edges. But this will give me an idea of how some of my other repots just might go with some of these pots with the lips on there. this being 3.5 years, I did go back and I watched that original video, and I was kind of timid with it. I left a little bit of potting soil in there, probably for the same reasons I'm going to be somewhat timid with it now. It's just I don't want it to ruin any chance of having that decent grip on the rock. And if this thing came off the rock, I could actually maybe make some kind of an interesting exposed roots out of it or something, but I'd rather have the rock there if I could. Oh boy. Jeez. There we go. Been a little while since I've done a repotting video. I kind of forgot I have to tilt it that way for you guys to see anything of what I'm doing. One thing I've learned for sure is to try not to forget those things are in there. Those in there to cover up the drain holes. This thing actually has, if this wasn't a root of a rock, this is a nice mat of roots that it's got here actually. Well, I'm a little disappointed in the choice of pot I'm going to have to do. This one here is actually a thrift store find, or not thrift store, I'm sorry, this was a flea market find. I have to go back to the flea market one day. That's you gotta be brave to go to that place here in Fort Myers, but I mean, I'm being kind of sarcastic, but it is definitely find some interesting people there. But either way, I can't really use this one. It looks good in there. I think it would actually be a decent little size for it and everything, but that's just it resting right on the pot. I want to have a little substrate in there, and then once I kind of come up a little bit more with it, being a little unstable. And then my next choice was this training pot here, of which, I mean, you know, it's a plastic training pot. It's not, you know, gonna look all that super great in there. It would look nice, but it's gonna have so much room and it would just explode with so much growth. I'm not even all that sure I want that much growth. And then the next pot I have that it even comes close to fitting in is basically this little bulb pan here. It's old and it kind of looks like crap, but I can get some good substrate under it. I don't really want anything growing out because I only want it to wrap around the rock. And then what I'll have to do is maybe find either a round or some kind of a rectangle pot that's just slightly bigger than this bulb pan. But I'll let this go in here for a little while. And maybe even just try to find a pot just like that pot I just had it in, and just make sure it's not broken or anything, obviously. But this thing has little slits in the drain hole, so I don't really worry about putting the mesh in there too much. Once these things start getting even the slightest bit root down, shouldn't be a problem anyway. Alright, and quite obviously not quite the aesthetic I was shooting for there. But it is done. Does have a lot more room with some more substrate under it. So I figure I'll let it grow like this and just try to work the top real aggressively while it grows out. I forgot what I had in this. This is actually from a recent repot. It had a bunch of holes in the top from where I had guy wires, and you can see some of it's even cracking up. So I can tell probably in a year or two this thing's probably going to crack up and just fall all apart. And at that point there, I'll try to make sure I got a proper size pot for it, get it into something a little bit better. Alright, last but not least, I'd like to try to see if I can go ahead and just fix up this pot. You can actually, I don't know if you guys can still read that or not, this is crack, it's $5, and it's pointing to where the crack is. And that is not the size where it broke at. But I still think I can get, you know, I think I got good enough use for it for the $5. And I think as long as I can get this piece glued on here okay, I think I can get some use out of it. There is, I have just Gorilla Glue. Some people like to do, I'm not really sure how to say it, but it's a method where you actually mix gold flakes and glue and make it look like it's got a gold thing on there. It's some Japanese thing, I don't know. I don't feel like doing all that. This I actually had 2.5 years old now. I had it when my insurance company came. One of my windows that was broke loose a little bit was actually already plexiglass that was repaired from a previous hurricane. And so they wouldn't pay for that window to be fixed. But I actually got a Gorilla Glued back up there. There we go. I'll probably just go ahead and have to throw this glue bottle out. I think that might be all I can get out of there. All right. Boy, sometimes I don't know how arts and crafts types people have their patience for things like this. I sure don't. Couldn't get any more to squirt out by the time I got up to that edge of the crack. But I think I'm even just going to let it cure right there. I don't have anything planned for the next few days in here. I'm just going to leave it there. If it holds together, I'll use it. If it doesn't, I guess I probably won't.